But first, as chaos ensues across the country over university investment ties to Israel, Ohio State University is no exception. Just last week, 36 people were arrested when protesters set up an encampment on the lawn and were forced to leave by police. Yesterday, things were more peaceful, with speakers rallying for 3 hours and dispersing after. At other campuses, it's not so quiet today. Police in riot gear confronted protesters on the campus of University of California, Los Angeles early this morning after demonstrators ignored an order to disperse. The officers were sprayed several times with some sort of chemical spray by the demonstrators as they entered the encampment. Those orders came after a violent confrontation Tuesday night between the pro-Palestinian protesters and pro-Israeli counter demonstrators on campus. It left about 25 people injured.
We're asking questions about those ongoing campus protests as encampments cover university lawns across the country. Many protest sites are erupting as university officials call in police. Now, this Saturday is the 54th anniversary of Kent State University's mass shooting, where Ohio National Guard members killed 4 unarmed college students and wounded 9 others, all while they were protesting the Vietnam War. Joining us now is Kabir Syed, an associate professor in Kent State's Department of African Studies. Thank you so much for joining us. Kabir, you're also teaching the class May 4th, 1970 and its aftermath class at that university. I'm just curious what you guys are doing to remember that as we come up now on the 54th anniversary.
Well, first, thanks for having me on. Yeah, we are coming up on our 54th commemoration of the shootings at Kent State, and there are a number of programs. Actually, there's a program right now looking at the role of Richard Nixon in the shootings and the aftermath of the shootings, and there's some programs looking at the international impact of Kent State and looking at some protest shootings in South Korea in a town, a city called Gwangju, South Korea, that occurred in about 10 years after Kent State. So there are a number of different programs, and then that'll all culminate with the commemoration on Saturday at 12:26.
There were a lot of protests 54 years ago. We're seeing a lot of protests around the country right now. What are the main factors driving these protests by students?
Well, I would say today the main factor is the war in Gaza and our government's complicity in it, and our government's involvement in it. And I would say that students across the country are calling for people to start recognizing what's happening in Gaza and to look at the disproportionality of what's occurring to Palestinians, predominantly women and children, and to also look at the interconnected role of our government and our military-industrial complex and security complex within that war.
Now, some lawmakers have called on university officials to bring in National Guard to quell the protesters. We know this is similar to what happened on the Kent State campus back in 1970. What are the implications of this kind of call to action?
Well, I mean, I would say, we could ask Bill Schroeder, Sandy Scheuer, Allison Krauss, and Jeffrey Miller what the implications are. They couldn't tell us because they were killed at the hands of the National Guard. We just had Dean Kaler, who was also shot, one of the injured students. Sorry about my dog. He was in our class on Monday night talking about what the implications were for his life. And, he's been paralyzed from the waist down for the past 54 years. And so I would strongly caution universities from taking a military response to First Amendment rights that college students are expressing at this time. It's difficult. I understand that administrations have a difficult time. It causes a lot of problems, costs a lot of money, but we are Americans.
I want to
we
ask you,
live
Professor
in-
Syed, if I can, what's your message to those in those encampments when we have situations like we just saw at UCLA where demonstrators allegedly were spraying officers, and also what took place at Columbia University where they took over that university building? What's your message to those protesters?
Again, I would say we have a history of these difficult and contentious struggles, and we need to learn from that history. We have to engage in what are very difficult, very complex, and very nuanced conversations. And we have to look at very difficult, complex, and nuanced histories and engage in those struggles as we will. And we're seeing what those struggles cost on the streets of college campuses across the country today. What I will say is that I think that these struggles have been out there for a long time, and the cost has generally been borne by the protesters. And I think that's why you'll see faculty and staff, as well as students across the country, really having concerns. So I tell those students, I counsel my students here at Kent State, proceed with extreme caution.
Well, it's certainly a
Recognize what the
conversation
risks
that
are.
would require much more than the 3 minutes that we've been able to talk here tonight. Associate Professor Kabir Syed of Kent State University's Department of African Studies. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.